Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and back to the challenge run. So, to give a quick catch-up, so far we have had 2 carts, and the Great Sword and Long Sword are both locked out. We're currently using Sword and Shield. So, starting off, we're going to go take out a Balahara and try to clean up some of the optional quests that are still lingering around. Balahara is not all that threatening, so I'm not terribly worried about this fight. Can be a little bit sneaky if you're not super careful, but here I am remembering that, yeah, I probably should make sure that my food buff never ever drops, especially on a run like this. So, also as a recap, since it's been a little bit since we've done one of these, the rules of the run are base armor only, no max tier weapons. In other words, the weapon always has to be at least 1 rank away from being the max tier. Can only use items while off the secret unless I'm traveling between areas, because that just cuts down on downtime of the video. Must rotate weapons on cart. No repeating weapons until I've went through them all. No gun lance, because that's my main on my main character that I do the main videos for the channel for, so I've got substantially more experience with it. And I really feel like if I started playing on it, I probably wouldn't end out switching off of it until much later, so it'd be less interesting. No decorations, pendants, and no upgrading Palico. He can be used, but he can't be upgraded, so the longer the game goes, the less resilience he has, the more likely he is to die, the less useful he'll end up being. That's sort of the idea there. He's good at the beginning, but then tapers off as we go further in. Then I figured it wouldn't hurt to go the quick refresh to the rules. I don't think I've added anything else in, just casually talking. So far, Uthduna took us out from the Great Sword, and then Kongalala, of all things, managed to knock me off the Long Sword. Wasn't really paying all that much attention. Now, that has actually taught me to kind of take these guys a little bit more seriously. And one thing is I'm actually finding this particular run is a little bit more engaging, a little bit more entertaining than my main playthrough was. It's not necessarily harder in an extreme sense, which is, what I was going for. What I have found is turn the difficulty up just enough to actually make the game just a little bit more intimidating, make you have to think just a little bit more. Like, right now, I'm still not super comfortable with Sword and Shield. I haven't played around with it a lot in this game so far, so this is getting me there. Balahara is not a bad one to really use for practice, and I honestly can't remember if I had the Doshagama fight in the previous video or if I just lost that footage, but I'm trying to clean up optional quests like I mentioned at the beginning. This is one of the optional ones, and there was an optional one for Kongalala that was checked off when I started working on this. I think I included it in the last video, but skimming through it I didn't really see it, so I don't know, I may have just ended up losing that one. I just had to take my word that the second time around, or no, Doshagama is what it was against, that the second time around I took it out just as easily as the first time, because it's just not that challenging. But this guy's not terrible. Spits a lot, but I'm also still pretty early in my usage of the longsword, so I'm playing a little bit more cautiously than normal, as you'll see. So I'm just going to be quiet and let the fight play out for a little bit. well, slight spoilers for the next 5 seconds, but didn't manage to make me cart in this one. So we get to keep going with the sword and shield, which is good. I actually really am enjoying playing with the sword and shield. It's made me really consider putting some time into trying to actually make some Ardean weapons on my main account for it, because where I am playing Gunlance on my main guy, I don't really have that much drive to mess around with the Ardean weapons, because the Guardian Arcveld one is just so good that even with some of the title update stuff that's come out at this point, it's just not been outclassed yet. So, go through with that. By the way, the end screens are what I try to keep in as sort of proof that I didn't cart. And I took up some advice that was in the comment on the last one, and I'm just going to edit out all the non-fight footage. I used to fast forward through it to just sort of show that I wasn't cheating, but to be honest with you, this is not some sort of official run. There's no speed running rules with this. It's not a challenge run in that sense. It's just one I'm making up. So there's no reason to bore y'all with the footage where everything gets sped up. And since this quest is just one where... Go through and make sure all the items are refilled, since this guy killed me once before. Look at that. I forgot about that prompt. I need to actually go through and set up a loadout. Realistically, the last loadout they have in it, all you gotta do is add a couple things in that it doesn't normally give you, then save over it. And you have a pretty good loadout set up. Normally, you carry a little bit of honey in the older game so that you could upgrade your basic potions to mega potions. I haven't found that really all that necessary so far, especially since there's not even a quest that locks you out from going back to the base camp. Now, might sound like I'm complaining about the difficulty overall, but I'm not. There's this weird sort of split between people that are talking about being carting... tongue-tied. Well, not really, just slipped over that. But there's a weird debate where there's a bunch of people saying the game is just substantially too easy, and then there's one crowd of people that are like, oh, no, no, no. I'm carting all the time now. Primarily, of course, focused on the fact that high-rank Xoshia and Arc-Tempered Rey Dau are out now. There's plenty of people complaining that those guys are too easy. Of course, they're popping up with like 5-minute clear time, so it's like, dude, you're just good. And then there's other people that are just, I can't manage to beat this fight every time I pop into it, generally in multiplayer. I die or my group wipes. Well, there's a couple things going on there. Number one, can't really judge the difficulty of a fight, like the actual difficulty of it, all that well if you're going in multiplayer from the get-go. Unless you're playing with a preset group, it's basically impossible to really see how hard a fight is. Just because some monsters are really susceptible to stun locking. Sometimes your groups are actually really, really good, or sometimes your group has one person that is extremely terrible and can't dodge the most basic attacks, and they're very reliant on being carried. And if that's the case, the monster's going to seem substantially harder to you than what it actually is. Xoshia, where it has the one-shot attack, kind of like what's his name? Jindahad. It can take out whole groups at one time. Like 3 out of 4 people end up getting hit by it and dying. The quest is done. It's not a hard one to avoid, really. But you just have a couple people that is their first time through, or that they've been consistently carried, that don't know how to avoid it. Then the occasional cart from actually legit being hit by something suddenly is a much bigger deal. Like, my rule of thumb before doing multiplayer is I won't do it until I've gotten to the point where I can consistently beat the monster with 1 cart or less. Because I'll allow myself 1 screw up. And I don't think it's unfair to expect people to tolerate 1 screw up. And if it's like, say you go into a fight and different people cart at different times. So you get all 3 of your carts, but it was a different person each time, and it's just one of those things that happens sometimes. You gotta be a little bit tolerant of missions failing. So everyone's going to screw up at some point, sometimes. But I don't think it's reasonable to expect a group to have it to where everyone else basically plays perfectly so that you can consume as many cards as you want to. So, I like to be good enough at a fight that I'm either not going to cart, or if I am going to, I'm only going to do it once. So, that's just sort of my philosophy approaching multiplayer. That's why you don't see me really doing it a whole lot, and why that's probably going to be the last stamp on the hunter card that I actually work out, is getting all the multiplayer fights in. And what I'll probably end up doing is just SOSing into a bunch of low-ranked quests and helping people that are just starting out in the game. I find that to be the least bothersome way to do it. I don't know. Multiplayer's not really my thing. To be honest with you, I get kind of nervous doing multiplayer, even though I know I can play well enough that at the end of the day, I'm more cautious in multiplayer. I slow down a little bit. I'm just trying not to fail the quest. It's fun, especially when you get into a group that's actually rolling really well and it just seems to overpower everything. This time around with Uthuna, by the way, I guess I should put some commentary about what's actually going on in the background. I'm taking my time with him. Uthuna's a really cool looking creature, and I would suspect it'll be the next Arc-Tempered variant that we get. Mainly because I would bet they try to give them to us in an order where the weapon from the previous one could potentially be, or not weapon, but the element of the previous one would be sort of a counter to the next one. Because there's no Arc-Tempered weapons. There's Arc-Tempered armor sets, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. I think that would be an interesting theming, do the sort of Mega Man order sequence, where you just go and order weakness. Well, speaking of which, what is the collab event that's coming up? Have they actually said anything about that? Because I've not seen any other news talking about it, but I know that's supposed to be sort of the next quote-unquote big thing on the horizon now that our Arc-Tempered friend is up. I might have to dig around on that and see if anything pops up on it. Well, I'm gonna be quiet for a little bit unless something else interesting happens.
set up camp there.
So this time around, honestly, I kind of saw this as a bit of a redeeming factor for Uthduna. I was determined to kill it without feigning to it. So I knew there wasn't really going to be a chance of feigning coming into this guy. I wasn't going to let it take out 2 weapons. But still a fun fight. The more that I do it, the more I actually come to appreciate how interesting the creature is. Even if it is kind of easy. And that's one fun thing that's happening in this run, is it's making me appreciate some of the fights that I really didn't have to stick around long enough to actually pay attention to the mechanics before, or that I could just kind of face roll through and not have to worry about deaths. So now death is actually a possibility even while still in low rank, and where we're trying to die as little as possible because I really don't want to get to the point of using the ranged weapons, then it makes me actually have to try to be careful and try to learn a little bit more about how they fight. So, if nothing else, this run's giving me more of an appreciation for the monsters that are in the game. Alright, so this quest is just typical go out kill trash monsters quest. It opened because I probably accidentally killed one in another quest. So I'm just clearing it off the log. We're going to jump straight to the ending. See, no feints listed. Weapon not lost, and they're probably never going to be lost on those unless I just get really screwed over and stun locked. Alright, so let's continue on and go fight probably my favorite monster in the game. I really don't know why I like this guy that much, but Rumpopolo. I'm really hoping they'll do something more with the entry-level monsters in the series. If I had one thing to nitpick about Monster Hunter, it would be the sheer number of monsters in each game that really become just functionally useless to fight after a very short time frame. Not that many people really chronically start new characters. I like to start new ones when I'm trying to learn a weapon that I haven't played with in a while, but honestly in this game I haven't felt the need to do that. Ardian weapons have kind of taken that away, and the fact that I'm really pretty much playing with a very general use build, it's not super optimal, but I can just forge an Ardian weapon whenever I actually want to test out a new one, and I instantly have a weapon that is at least passably towards the end game, and I can take it out and test it out on monsters. The problem is, you really don't have much motivation to fight the low-level monsters because there's only a couple weapons where Ardian is not the best. So when you get to the end game, the best thing to do, time-wise, is fight the Rarity 8 monsters, or just like Tempered Apexes, Tempered Gore, Tempered Arkveld, Tempered Mizutsune, or Zoshia. And really which one you're going to go after just depends on what sort of rewards you're getting in your reward boxes for them. Like if you get the right tempered arc veld and you get the double reward box, you can get a whole bunch of Ardian weapon parts. So farming that stuff up, not that bad. Farming up the materials to do your upgrades, also not really that bad. Doesn't actually require going in and fighting low rank monsters. The low and mid tier monsters just fade away into the background, but that's how it's pretty much always been. There's a really simple solution to it, and it's have a crafting system like they have with Ardian weapons, but have it to where each tier of monster has a specific category of parts, and that you need all 3 part types in order to actually make the weapon you want. Like, they could even sort of split it up so that certain weapons parts come from different monsters, so depending on what weapon you're forging, yeah, you may end up having to farm one particular monster. Actually, you know what? Scrap that. I don't like the idea of getting that specific. But let's say you, like with Ardian weapons, you always need 3 pieces. Well, just have 3 categories. One's tier 1 category, one's tier 2 category, one's tier 3. If you only use a tier 1 part, make that the lowest rank Ardian weapon. If you use a tier 1 and tier 2, make it the second tier. Tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, you do the max one. But you have to fight the appropriate monsters to get them. So then all the monsters in the game stay relevant. And you're just looking for what the best reward parts would be from each tier. That would make it to where you're always fighting everything. Yeah, with in-game builds, stuff like this guy can go down in just a matter of minutes. But even having an excuse to come in and fight him 5 or 6 times in really quick succession and just taking him out would still keep him relevant. It still keeps you doing the fight. And it also gives them an excuse to use any monster in the game when it comes to like doing things like arc tempered. If they have a low tier monster, it's really cool, like this dude has some interesting gimmicks, but because he's so low tiered, it wouldn't make sense to introduce him in a form like arc tempered Rey Dau unless there's a reason why you're still killing him in endgame. And then suddenly the pool opens a lot more for what monsters are actually worthwhile for them to focus their time on. Say each update could actually come with a higher ranked version of each one of the tiered monsters. So instead of just having arc tempered Rey Dau, you could have, like, I don't know, arc tempered Rompopolo, arc tempered Rathalos, and arc tempered one of the Apexes. And each one would just say, in addition to having their own armor sets, could award more Ardian parts than normal, so that you would have more motivation to fight them than just the armor set. I don't know, it's just something I've thought about quite a bit, trying to come up with a way to keep all the monsters in the game relevant to at least some degree. And yeah, the lowest tier ones are always going to die faster than the highest tiered ones, but it would be nice to not just hit a certain point where you just kind of ignore them forever. Anyway, ran over. Let's enjoy one of the weirder monsters that they've come out with. Let's enjoy the fight for a moment.
Looks like the monster drops something.
You could probably tell I wasn't really terribly worried about this guy, just from the conversation that I was having. I've also fought him more times than anyone really should fight Rompopolo, because when I have an excuse to fight him, I go fight him. I think it's amusing, just the way he fills up with gas and how each part can kind of pop as you depower him, but yet he still has other parts to break in addition to it. I don't know. Something about him just struck me as curious, and he really caught my attention. So, that's all there is to him, really. Now, I believe we're at the point where it's time to continue the story quests. Unfortunately, that does mean actually talking to the handler a little bit and skipping past some cinematics. And I'll cut as much of that out as possible. I like to leave the point in where I basically do the equivalent of accepting the quest. That's just kind of to show exactly what's going on.
Everyone, we're leaving.
Yeah, you say, right, let's hurry, and then it takes forever dragging your way through this. This guy is a really cool monster. I actually don't think he's particularly difficult in his baseline form. The Arc-Tempered one actually hits pretty hard. It's one of those fights that as you get used to it, it's not as bad as it starts out with, but it managed to fail me twice. So my first kill, which was actually a capture because I was curious if you could capture him, for the Arc-Tempered variant, was on my third fight. But baseline version, not terrible. Although I will say he's a little bit better now. Like, in retrospect, this fight is really fun doing it the way I'm doing it. Where I'm not overwhelming him, and he's not really overwhelming me, but it feels a lot more even. And it's made it into a much more interesting fight. Like, it took quite a bit longer than the first time that I fought him in the story mode, where I had actually decently upgraded weapons and whatnot. But at this point, I'm also starting to really get into a stride in terms of using the sword and shield. So I'm starting to get really comfortable with it, and I really screwed up whiffed there because I was trying to block. But really starting to enjoy it, starting to get the combos down and trying to figure out some of the fine differences between the points, like how you do the spinning attack at the end versus chaining straight from the spinning attack into that little double stab jump thing that he does. I don't know, I'm starting to actually really hit my stride with it and really enjoy it. So, since this guy is sort of the big focus right now, let's just kick back and enjoy the fight in its easiest incarnation.
Should be at the camp beneath the oasis. Got it. About unfriendly environments. I hope the weather relents soon.
I'm actually really proud of how this fight's went. I'm proud of doing things like that, like getting his tail cut, breaking his head right in the middle of him getting ready to attack. We got him down to the skull, so there's not much more left. Trying to really just hammer him home. And he's trying to fight back, but we've weakened him at this point. We've gotten him down to where there's not that much more left in the fight. And we get some pretty cool attacks off. I've been trying to pull that off for most of the fight. I love when you can get in there and do that, because I mainly play on the gun lance, and on the gun lance, actually doing the little wound pop, the focus strike, it's a pain in the ass. And then one of the most disappointing points that I've had in this entire series so far. I was getting really happy with the sword and shield. I actually cursed aloud, quite loudly, when I died at that point. To the point where my wife actually hollered in here and asked me if I was okay. That was extremely disappointing. I think dual blades look cool, but I was not excited at all about working my way through them because, to be honest, I've not spent enough time with them to really feel like I mastered them in any game. I have played around with them a little bit, but not a whole hell of a lot. And I know there's some really fine tricks to it But one of the biggest things that intimidates me with it is for the last, like, well, I don't know. I played longsword some in World on the PC. And I think I played around with it a little bit too in Rise. So, it's not been a super long time since I've done a dodge weapon, although really the longsword's a counter weapon. I've not done a pure dodge weapon in a long time. So, I feel like dual blades are not long for this world. Like, I just don't know how long I'm going to be able to stick with them. And not from a lack of effort, I'm really going to put some time into it. Like, before I do the next video, I'm going to go to the practice yard a little bit and brush up on the actual combos. Like, switching between demon mode and archdemon mode. And just being sure I understand the finer points about how the attacks work. And how dodging works with it. I know from the little bit that I got to do in the fight here that it actually does feel more fluid. Go ahead and carve his tail while he's sleeping. But they're cool weapons, so it'll be fun to play around with them a little bit. And I guess for the series, it's actually good if I'm rotating through the weapons with at least some regularity. Like, I don't know how much of an interesting challenge run it would be if I end out going for multiple videos on the same weapon. Honestly, to the point where one of the rules I've considered introducing is that if I go for like 2 parts in a row with the same weapon, it becomes mandatory to shift up to the next one. But it doesn't eliminate the old one, but I don't know, we'll see. We'll deal with that problem if it actually pops up. Like, I've preemptively removed gun lance from the weapon pool. But I'll go ahead and give you spoilers. I do manage to make it to the end of this fight without dying, but he's almost dead. It would be basically have to be intentional for me to lose at this point. Because he's weakened. He's at the point where the skull is flashing. If I really wanted to, I could probably trap him, which, now that I think about it, I probably should have done that to avoid the death, and I whiffed trying to get the focus strike on there. That is one thing I do know about dual blades. They have the coolest focus strike in the game. I just didn't pull it off on that one, so hopefully we'll get to see that quite a few times in some of the other videos. Future thought, it would be kind of cool if we managed to still have dual blades around when we get to Jindahad. Pretty sure New Udra's next. And unless the game takes a turn towards the easier, there's a specific quest coming up where we gotta fight 2 Ajara Khans at the same time, at least for a little bit. And that fainted me the first time through. I'm pretty sure that's going to end up feigning me at least once. Because all I gotta do is get cornered by the 2 monkeys and then I'm down. That one sucks too, because it fails you out, so you have to restart that whole section over again. But anyway, let's pull up the recap. We've had 3 total carts so far from Uthduna, Kongalala, and Rey Dau. And the Greatsword, Longsword, and Sword and Shield are all on cooldown and can't be used for the time being.
Well done! Phew, that was one heck of a monster.
We're on to the dual blades,
Should we go find the others?
and then
There should still
getting
be
prepped to go on to the next story quest. So I guess the next video we'll clean up whatever new optional quests have opened up and move on in the story a little bit, which I think moves us back into Oilwell Basin for a little while. We'll see.
What does it mean?
I'll see you all in the next video. Remember, if I can beat it, so can you.